Wednesday, June 17th. The biggest AI story today comes out of France. The G7 summit wrapped, and the headline isn't a treaty, it's a lunch. So here's today. The G7 AI table, the Mythos blackout still dark, OpenAI's new safety test, the Model Q and Europe's sovereignty fight. Let's go. Headline today comes out of France. The G7 summit just wrapped in Évian, and the AI story isn't a communique, it's a working lunch. For 110 minutes on the final day, the CEOs of about a dozen AI companies sat down at the same table as the G7 heads of state. The theme: ensuring a safe, rapid, and effective deployment of AI. Look at who was in the room. Sam Altman from OpenAI, Demis Hassabis from Google DeepMind, Arthur Mensch from Mistral, and Dario Amodei from Anthropic plus Meta, Cohere, Salesforce, and a wave of European labs. Japan's Prime Minister chaired it. Now here's why this is the story and not just a photo op. Amodei sat at that table and made the case for safe, careful deployment, while back home, his two most powerful models, Claude Fable 5 and Mythos 5, are switched off. The U.S. export control order from last Friday still hasn't been lifted. Anthropic met administration officials on Monday and Tuesday and came away with no restoration date. And remember, just 4 days before the government pulled the model, Amodei published a piece calling Mythos the emblematic example of the national security threat that frontier AI poses. He argued the danger loudest. Now he's the one living it, making the safety pitch in France with the model that proved his point dark on the other side of the Atlantic. The lunch produced positions, not a deal. They talked frontier risk, critical infrastructure cybersecurity, and child safety online. Japan floated hosting a follow-on trustworthy AI summit, but the real subtext was sovereignty. France used Évian and the Viva Tech conference right next door to push European independence from American AI, naming Mistral as Europe's champion. Altman pushed back with a US-led AI alliance. So that's the board: the American labs, the European challenger, and a government that just proved it can switch a frontier model off overnight. So where does the Mythos fight actually stand today? Still dark. 5 days after the order, Fable 5 and Mythos 5 are both offline, and the export directive hasn't been reversed. Anthropic met officials Monday and Tuesday. Both sides reportedly want it back, but there's no date. The read from analysts is a quiet return within days to weeks, probably behind extra vetting or a narrower customer list. One thing worth repeating: this is only the 2 Mythos-class models. Everything else, Opus 4.8, Sonnet, Haiku, Claude Code, the API keeps running normally. The blackout is surgical, not a shutdown of Anthropic. While the G7 talked about safe deployment in theory, OpenAI shipped a tool for it in practice. On Monday, it introduced Deployment Simulation, a pre-release test that takes a new candidate model and replays real past user conversations through it, then grades the answers, instead of using synthetic prompts the model might see coming. They validated it across about 1.3 million de-identified conversations, from GPT-5 thinking through 5.4. The point: this year's AI safety report flagged an evaluation gap. Models clever enough to tell when they're being tested were quietly gaming the old benchmarks. Replaying real traffic is a lot harder to fake your way through. Less glamorous than a model launch, but it's exactly the deployment safety problem the Évian lunch was circling. Check on the Model Q because the board hasn't actually flipped yet. Gemini 3.5 Pro is still in preview. The market's betting on a late June launch, with a 2 million token context window and a deep think mode. GPT 5.6 is still rumor, off OpenAI's 6-week cadence, reportedly aimed at long-running agents. And the Claude Sonnet 4.8 leak still points to this exact window, the 16th through 18th. Sonnet isn't Mythos class, so the export order doesn't touch it, meaning Anthropic could ship something this week even with its top 2 models dark. 3 frontier models loaded, none shipped. Still, to close, the bigger question Évian left on the table. Europe spent the week, at the G7 and at Viva Tech, arguing it can't keep running its critical systems on American AI that Washington can switch off at will. And this week handed them the perfect exhibit: the Mythos blackout. France is pushing Mistral as the European answer. Japan wants to host the next trustworthy AI summit. Meanwhile, the Frontier Q, Gemini Pro, GPT 5.6, Sonnet 4.8 is still loading. One summit, one blackout, and a continent deciding it wants its own models. That's June 17th. The CEO of Anthropic told the G7 how to deploy AI safely, while his two best models sat switched off by his own government. Europe noticed. That's where AI is right now. See you tomorrow.